All right. We're live. That's John's line, but he's not here.
That's John. We're live.
So John's in Vegas? Is this a
Or
conference?
Thrive.
Oh, Thrive. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You didn't go.
I didn't like it last time. I think John's gone 3 years in a row now.
Wow.
John's the one who convinced me to go last year. But after last year, I was like, fuck this. I'm not going.
What didn't you like about it?
I guess I've gotten to the point where unless I feel I'm meeting some really high quality people and I think the conference is more relevant rather than just like, oh yes, you can do it too. We all can do it and we should all do it. Some motivational stupidity.
But you can do it, Manny. You can.
I stopped believing. Same thing with 10x, like the 10x Growth Con that, what's his name?
Grant Cardone.
Grant fucking Cardone. Yeah. He's still sending me text messages. I've unsubscribed to so many of his emails. I still get his emails. It's unbelievable.
I'll send you text messages too.
Yeah.
And I think people like Grant Cardone.
It's like it does not end. You cannot run away from Grant Cardone. Uncle G is all over.
He's the Terminator.
Yeah.
No matter how far away you take your phone, he can still text it.
He's the tiny Terminator. 5 feet 5 inches of Terminator.
Oh, is he short? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not that tall.
Okay.
I think he's like 5'5", 5'6", maybe.
Okay.
That's funny.
What?
Do you like that?
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Keep talking, Josh, so I don't have to look at it.
Yeah. All right. So I've been experimenting. I'm not experimenting. I'm actually doing more of that thing where I was talking about, where I asked the team, where I asked my email list as to what lead magnet they want.
Oh, yeah.
It's really useful data that I get from it. It's almost like I can ask them what email course they want me to create for them and use that to sell to them. So I just send an email with a survey of like, these are the 7 things I'm thinking about. Which one do you want? And that gives me like the runaway winner most of the times. And it's like, okay. Well, not only does it give me the runaway winner, it also gives me the second one in case I decide, okay, I need to do another one in the future. So,
are you looking to do another product launch, or are you just?
No, just selling the same product again through different, like maybe create a different email sequence. Because the way my products, a lot of the times, they are just book summaries, right?
Right.
So I don't like a one pitch could be just straight up these ideas from these books, but then one pitch is more about, okay, this course, this email course, the focus challenge, the 5-day focus challenge or something, or the daily. So the email courses that I'm creating are like the 7-day focus challenge would be 7 days of ideas from 7 different books leading up to the sale, or the 7 days of doing more while working less. And it's like another challenge, or having more fun in life while working less. Like these are all different challenges, but these are like all have ideas from different books that I put together as different outcomes, basically. So some people might be interested in the outcome of more focus, while some people might be interested in the outcome of working less while making more. So different angles to sell the same course.
Nice.
Like what I'm realizing is I need to do more marketing on the courses that I already have rather than create more courses right now. Though there's always the possibility of creating one more for Simple Programmer before Simple Programmer stops doing any more courses from external people. Who are you guys? What's your take on that, Josh?
Doing a course for Simple Programmer?
Well, no.
Oh,
Yes, that too. That's separate. More of what I was just saying, like creating these different email courses that lead to the same product with different ideas from different
yeah.
books.
I mean, especially for your YouTube videos. Like if you can match the outcomes better to your YouTube videos, I think that's where you'll get the biggest bang for your buck, if that makes
What do you
sense. Well, so when you're created so if you've got a lead magnet that's about focus, or sorry, if you've got a YouTube video that's more about focus, having the 7-day focus challenge coming off of that, leading into like that's you know what I mean, like that's a
It
better
goes on the same time, the 7-day
Right.
focus challenge.
right.
I mean, it's an evergreen email sequence, but also having a 7-day focus challenge on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
I'm curious because I've been thinking a lot about this, especially, we hear Josh talking about how, the sales of products aren't working the way he wants and things like that. And I wonder a little bit if some of this should be focused on building a brand as opposed to selling a product. And then having products that kind of spin naturally off of the brand. And so, in your case, Manny, we're talking about productivity and things like that. Have you built up your productivity brand and then you have products that you can sell off of that? Or are you mostly creating products for your list and then just trying to, cash in as much as you can before you move on to the next one?
So mine is not a productivity brand, and mine is a book summary brand.
Right.
So everything I do is with book summaries in mind. It just so happens that any course or any of these email courses that I create are aligned with any book summary package that I'm wanting to sell. So the focus challenge, the 7-day focus challenge, is literally all about selling our productivity book summary packs at the end of it. Or another one that I'm working on or another title set I'm working on is for the mental toughness one, which probably is the warrior mindset challenge. So the warrior mindset challenge will lead them to the mental toughness course, and maybe at a later time it'll be how to become a stoic, and that will again lead them to the mental toughness course. So it'll have different ideas from different books, but these are just email courses that are leading to the same end course in some ways. And writing those different courses, writing those different email sequences to lead to the same product, but just giving a different perspective every single time. Because it doesn't really take that much to write an email course anymore for me, because all the ideas are in the book. So I just literally take the ideas, whatever we have written already, and put them in a sequence that allows to sell, or that allows to educate. And then on top of the education, the selling. So it's 2 days of work for creating any of these email sequences or email courses, but then they're giving different angles, maybe a self-esteem course, the warrior mindset course, or performance under pressure course, but they all lead to the same end results. Chuck is mute, I think. I don't think Chuck is mute, but Chuck is muted.
Key difference. What a difference a letter makes.
Chuck has gone mute. What would that mean?
We've lost him.
I think now we can hear you, Chuck. No, not from your mic.
Yeah.
It's like we're just hearing your keyboard or computer sound. No, we can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
happened there?
I guess what I'm driving at, Manny, is that book summaries is kind of how you sell what you're selling, if that makes sense. I mean, you're essentially selling people on saving time by not having to read the books and still getting the benefits. But I'm still wondering if there's an outcome that you can brand against, be it, living a better life, or, being more productive, or doing better at business, or something like that. Doing better in your career, that then you can have the courses kind of built around that idea. And I think you already have that. I think if you could probably just find some central message, and then it's not just book summaries, but it's book summaries to get you the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. And so far, I have said book summaries for entrepreneurs. That's the underlying message. But more and
That's
more,
fair.
I'm going to.
But what's the outcome for the
live a
entrepreneur?
greater life, like
Yeah.
do something great in this world. That's the key message that I don't do book summaries just for the heck of doing, a topic, because I always get like people saying, "Oh, you should do political book summaries or book summaries on
do that.
philosophy or any shit like that." I'm like, no, that's not aligned with what I want to do. It's more of book summaries for personal development and entrepreneurship. But you're right, like book summaries for entrepreneurs is a tagline, but the challenge is as soon as I go lower than that, which is do great things in this world or do something great in this world, now it becomes a little murky or hazy for someone from outside to be like, what do you mean? What are you doing here? What's this business about? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of battling that, trying to not go down. Like maybe there's a way to combine that.
Yeah, I think there's a way. I think you're just going to have to sit down, maybe with a thesaurus and, some ideas and just kind of hammer it out. But yeah, some way of communicating to people. My book summaries are designed to help entrepreneurs, make a giant impact on the world or something. And then, and that way you can kind of capture that, because then anybody that identifies, because I identify with entrepreneur, but it's not something I think about every day. I'm thinking about what I'm doing every day. But the things that I'm thinking about every day are specifically, how do I make that dent in the universe? How do I make that impact? And so if you can give me that idea, and then it's like, so now you can be more productive making your difference. Now you can, go be more of a go-getter, because you have to do sales and hire and things like that. Here's how you can, and that way you can tie it all back to, hey, look, we're going to help you make an outsized difference in these ways.
Yeah, and so that's definitely like the underlying thing I think about, even if it doesn't get communicated outside. So I see what your point is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need to be
Simple
more
Programmer has a bigger problem with this than you do, but I'm just
I would agree. I agree. I think this is basically the same issue. And I think this is partly a symptom of starting, like when you start a business by starting with an audience and creating content about stuff that you're interested in. This is kind of this can be a challenge that you run into later.
Yeah.
So because you're not starting with a specific problem that you're attacking, so you kind of end up searching for the problem later.
Yeah, well, and I think the problem with Simple Programmer more or less boils down to the same thing. John never really articulated what that core message or core idea was, but you could kind of pick it up when you heard him talk, and so people identified with it and came anyway.
Right.
And I think you need to circle back, figure out what that is. You're probably going to lose some people. You'll probably pick up some new people, but then your products start to come off of that idea and off of that core mission, that core idea. And then people see, oh, okay, everything they're doing is to lead me to this specific place. And it may be painful. You may lose a lot of people before you gain a lot of people. But I think that's what's been your problem the entire time is you go promote Interview Cake, you go promote some of these other things, and sure, some segment of your audience needs those products, and so they go buy them. But you're not telling them, hey, look, this is what we're all about, and this is how this particular thing is going to get you there. And so some of them go real well, and some of them fall flat. and it's because you're not tying it back to whatever it is that they came to you for.
I mean, and the thing is, every business has its identity that way. Like
Mhm.
if you're AppSumo or Udemy, that's what I expect from you. Right? I expect you to sell me the courses from other people or products from other people, the softwares from other people. I actually want AppSumo to send me more deals.
Well,
Right? It's kind of crazy, but I do. I actually
even
love seeing their
2000
deals.
Books or Simple Programmer can do that, but they have to be aligned with that thing that I drew you in for in the first place, and I have to be able to connect the dots for you.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I think 2000 Books versus Simple Programmer. 2000 Books is, I think, a little bit of stuff that I did wasn't really aligned. Not a little bit. I think partly last year I got myself misaligned because I was worried more about upsells than about the core messaging and the core business itself, which was really about book summaries.
Mhm.
So if I had stayed true to the book summary line of thinking, I would have been, it would have been like more of everything that I do, more and like 10x more of everything I do. And book summaries have always been the stuff that sells the most on our business every single time. Everything else just becomes like, okay, how can we increase the price point and all that crap, which is useful, but at some point,
Yeah.
I think John and I were discussing last week, like just doing more of what you do best is better than trying to do other things just because you think they will in the long term or they will in the short term make you higher cost per click or something like that. Doing more of what you do and just sticking to your lane in the long term will bring you more momentum. It's the principle of the flywheel.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with that from the book Good to Great.
Yeah. Yep.
I think
Never read that one.
we're all three of our businesses were searching for that flywheel in some ways, and we have kind of sort of a grip on what it is that flywheel will be. But once that flywheel starts to churn, that's when you see momentum building every single month on month or quarter over quarter on that one thing rather than on revenue as the metric. Because revenue as the metric is not a good metric for the flywheel. So for those I guess not everyone who's listening or watching is aware of the flywheel concept. It's something that Jim Collins talked about in the book Good to Great. And I summarized that book. That was one of the first summaries I ever did on 2000 Books channel. And he talks about how for any business, a lot of times management will get into the mode of let's search for that next thing that will give us the boost that we need, that next shiny object.
Right.
The other shiny object that will give us the boost that we need, that will take us to the next level. But that's a recipe for long-term disaster because you end up think of it like a giant flywheel, like a 5,000-pound giant flywheel. You're trying to rotate it. Initially, you push it in this direction, and then you push it in that direction, and then you push it in this direction, and then you push it in that direction. But that doesn't really lead to any progress. Progress comes from just pushing the flywheel in one direction over and over and over again, even though initially it is so slow that it feels like you're never going to make anything happen. But as you keep pushing, maybe you go from 1 miles per hour, or the velocity at the circumference is 1 mile per hour, but then it goes to 2 miles per hour, and then 3, and then 4. Even 4 feels like nothing. But if you keep on pushing for months and months and months and years and years and years, now you get crazy momentum on it.
Yep.
But then people will come and ask you later, hey, what was that one thing you did that made this business take off? And there's never that one thing. It's just that you kept doing the same damn thing over and over again. That's all.
Yep.
So in some ways, I kind of didn't do the same damn thing over and over again for a bit last year. But I feel like now I'm back into the groove of just doing the same damn thing over and over again, which is doing the book summaries and nothing else, and not worrying about anything else. Just that being the core of the business, and everything else can go to hell. No marketing service or anything like that.
Yep. Yeah, I've been listening to the MFCEO project with Andy Frisella, and he talks a lot about that, just about how you gotta stick it out sometimes for 10 years before you really get momentum. And I mean, there's always a counterpoint, right? There may be something else that you could be doing that will make you succeed more, or the thing you're working on may not take you to success. But yeah, sometimes you just have to stick it out, and that means not going after the shiny object. And I have a real problem doing that. But
Yeah, there's a really you've all read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
mhm.
In that book, he says one thing that when I read it, or first time I heard it on my CD player in my car, because I had the book and CD. Remember those
The
days?
good old days.
Yeah. I heard that he said, and as soon as I heard it, I literally paused it, and I was like, what the fuck? And everything I thought about, like that paradigm shift was so huge. He said, in relationships and in life, slow is fast and fast is slow. Now, it is so damn deep and so damn good, because once you start to correlate with everything you've done in life, you start to see that.
Yep.
The slow path is the path of initial progress being difficult and very little progress, and but still sticking to that damn thing rather than going for the next shiny object.
Yep.
The fast path is always looking for that fast cut. But in the long term in life, the slow path is what gets the fast results, or the results the fastest, while the fast path, the path of looking for shiny object, gets results the slowest in the long term.
Yep.
It's like one of the biggest life lessons that I have to keep reminding myself, and I keep stumbling across this every fucking time, and I'm like, what happened again?
Mhm.
You can take the same, like whether it's dating, whether it's your interpersonal relationships. A lot of times we're trying to be efficient with the relationship, and we'll tell our kids or tell our spouses or tell our parents or whatever, like we try to be like, no, just do that, I tell you to do that. And those things are, as efficient they are, not as effective in the long term. That is the fast path, but only leads to slow long-term success.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the whole process mindset that John talks about quite a bit, right?
Yep. Well, and that's kind of where I've come back around to after talking to you guys and spending some of the time on some of the other shiny objects, is that now I'm really focused on the infrastructure of the podcasts. And so it's like, okay, we're going to get this big chunk out of the way done right, and then we're going to move on to the next big chunk of things and move on and get that done right. And so like right now, I'm spending a ton of time working on Podwrench, and I've actually been working on an update and redesign of devchat.tv, just to get the website to the point where we can really start, plugging in some of the marketing stuff and getting people on the mailing list and, doing all those things right. And then the next step is getting all the social media stuff hammered out and getting all the email stuff hammered out. And it's not sexy, it's not the funnest stuff in the world, but just staying on that slow path and making a step every day forward is the way that it has to work. And then, some of the other things that do sound fun or cool or whatever, I can go attack those later once I have the gears turning on all this other stuff. I have those processes working, and I have people working those processes.
So this is really interesting. This is really good. I was talking to John over the last couple of weeks of quite a few discussions about this. The thing is, the shiny object is a very interesting thing, because even though we think we're, or the lack of shiny object or the flywheel, there is a tighter and tighter and tighter flywheel that you can rotate. What I mean by that is, we can get seduced into building a really giant flywheel instead of rotating a tight flywheel really fast
Yeah.
and building massive momentum on that.
Yeah.
So the tight flywheel is where we need to focus the energy on rather than a giant flywheel.
Well,
And-
to take the metaphor a little bit further, the smaller flywheel takes less energy to get turning than the large one.
Yes.
The flip side is once you get out on the edge of a large spinning flywheel, you're moving faster. And so there are trade-offs, but it's much easier to get that smaller flywheel turning. And then, you can actually, plug stuff in and get that momentum on the outside so that you are moving faster.
Yeah, it's almost like you can pour cement on top of it and it'll keep on drying it and making it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, you can get bigger
So the
get a bigger wheel
the
on it.
challenge of entrepreneurship is surviving till you get to the point of extreme like growth or profitability or whatever you want to call it. And the tighter the flywheel, the higher the chances of survival and building that damn thing and making it profitable faster.
Yep.
The bigger the flywheel, the more delayed profitability will be, or the more delayed overall money coming in will be. So John and I were talking about that idea that ultimately the tightest flywheel is the one where this is the thing that generates money. Now let's keep doing this.
Mhm.
Let's forget about everything else. So this is where the 80-20 comes into play, where we say, okay, these are the 20% things that literally build money, get us the money coming into the door.
Mhm.
Everything else is just waste. It's just stuff that's not needed right now. So
Yeah, I was
literally
gonna
cutting
say,
down the
it's a metaphor
fat,
for
80% of the fat. What's that?
It's a metaphor for focus, right?
Yeah.
The smaller flywheel, you can focus more on what's making it turn.
Yeah, on just the revenue. Everything
Yeah.
else can go to hell. Like if you identify where the revenue is coming from and how you're increasing the revenue, and you're just doing more of that shit and let everything else go, that's the fastest and the smallest, the tightest flywheel you can rotate. And
Yeah,
the
but the
fastest
flywheel's
profit
there to
making.
make everything else turn, and that's the whole point, right? Is
Yeah.
that if you get that smaller, tighter focus and you put all of the momentum into that, then
Mhm.
everything else turns based on that momentum in that flywheel.
Yeah, and like John was giving the example of how in 1 year he did 52 plural site courses. He's like, I basically cut out everything else in my life, and I cut out all the other shit. I just decided every week I was gonna have to do a course, and that was my quota, and everything else just went to hell. But that was my quota, just because I knew this is gonna make me money. I'm just gonna keep doing these courses and forget about everything else. And that's kind of where I am now, where all I need to do is create book summaries and create marketing around those book summaries and let everything else go to hell.
And back to the point that I was trying to make earlier is that if you can focus that around a central idea, right, that kind of momentum you can create for other people, then that will lead to the profitable courses. It'll lead to easy marketing messages because they all centralize on that same focus.
And that's fair. Like I think internally that messaging is clear to me, but
Yeah, you need to make it
to-
clear to other people,
yeah,
codify it, and then when you're doing a new course, ask the question, how does this fit with what I'm trying to create?
yeah. I should do a summary of the story brand and kind of apply it more to the business as well.
Mhm.
Because it seems like that's kind of the book that's been talking about this idea like quite a bit. But yeah, I think that it's really that like tightness of the flywheel is the key, or what I would say, there is one thing inside the one thing inside the one thing. I initially thought being in the book summary business is the one thing, but inside the book summary business is which is your marketing channel you're going to go after, and inside the marketing channel, what is the format of that content that you're going to create, and inside the format, how often, like what is the consistency, like all of it's like there's one thing inside the one thing inside the one thing inside the one thing inside the one thing. There's this like really tight flywheel or loop of things you need to do, and everything else is a waste. Everything else is causing problems more than adding value to your business.
Yeah, at the very center, there's going to be some core why.
And here's it aligns usually with your core values and your core strengths.
Yes.
Because anytime you try to do things outside of that, you're just wasting a lot of effort.
Yep. And if your core why is to make money, it makes it really hard to center anything else on that.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of things that can make money. So you typically have to build it around some other why. And that's where the core values come in for you or for your company.
Yeah. The core values and the core strength are basically the unchanged, the core that stays no matter what the business does.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have some exciting stuff I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Do it.
So first of all, next week I have kickoff discussions for the DevOps podcast, the blockchain podcast, the .NET podcast, and the Python podcast.
Love it.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about that. And I had an attorney draw up just a really simple contract, and I send it over to Clean Coders. And essentially what it says is that, they allow me to use their branding to promote the podcast, and we have exclusive distribution rights on the podcast. And then for them, what they were concerned about was links back to their paid content. And so it also says that, that I won't remove any links to their paid content that go into the show notes without asking them first. And
Nice.
so it looks like that's probably going to get rolling here within the next week or so. They're ready to pull the trigger.
Is Uncle Bob going to actually be involved in that?
Yeah, I believe he's probably going to be on like every 2 to 3 weeks
Okay.
on that show. And
Wow.
it's essentially going to be a host talking to their content creators. But yeah, my understanding was that Uncle Bob's going to be on a regular basis.
Very cool.
So he won't. I kind of got the impression he wouldn't be on every time. And it might not even be most of the time, but probably a good deal of the time. So
How old is Uncle?
Uncle Bob, I don't know, he's 60 something, I think.
Wow.
He's still got 20 years in him at least.
Wow.
He's been a curmudgeon since he was 21, probably.
That's his style.
Yep.
Yeah. Google says he's 67 years old. So,
Okay.
but yeah, he's a super interesting person to talk to too. So, but yeah, so we're getting that rolling, and then yeah, I've got people coming out of my ears wanting to sponsor the shows, and so I'm starting to look toward the new shows.
So this is where I think everything else goes to shit. You only focus on launching the shows and getting the sponsorships.
Yeah.
Don't worry about social media and like the infrastructure and all. Like any infrastructure that doesn't bring the money right now is useless infrastructure.
Yeah, the way that I've been doing it is that so I spend most of my focus pulling together the new shows, talking to sponsors, finding sponsors. But when I need a break from that, or if I have some time where it's not as productive to spend the time on that, either because all my JavaScript spots are full, so finding another company to sponsor a JavaScript podcast is not as productive. Then I go work on the infrastructure stuff, because that's the next most important thing. That's the next thing that's going to boost all this, because it essentially puts those processes into place and makes them easier and cheaper to run.
So again, I wish John was here, because this is the exact conversation I was having with John last week and even this week. And every time I came up with this excuse of, hey, what if I have some extra time? And what if I feel like I don't really want to do this, or like there's just enough bandwidth to do something else? He's like, well, you just do more of the damn thing.
That's true.
And I'm like, what if I could do something else? He's like, well, just do more of that thing that you just did.
Yeah.
What if I'm bored? He's like, well, okay, you're bored, then just take a break, then come back to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's
It's like
fair.
so tight. The flywheel is really tight at that point. Like
No,
there's nothing else. It's show production and sponsorships, and you keep making the sponsorship process so fucking tight that it's so good that you increase. The thing is, if you just focus on your sponsorship deals and you kept on making it better and better and better, either you increase the dollar amount you get, or the number of sponsorships you get, or the conversions that you get, or you remove yourself from that whole process. There's a lot of different things you can improve in the whole thing, because that is your business. Getting sponsorships is now your core business. Building audience and getting sponsorships, that's all there is. Everything else is
yeah.
shit.
Well, the social media stuff feeds into getting.
Are they asking for it? If they're asking for it, you're right. If not, that's just extra
No,
stuff
but it
that you
feeds
feel
into
like
building
doing.
audience, and that's where some of the focus goes. But
No. Yes
I
and
know
no.
it does feel like an excuse. I will say that.
If
no, I
the
agree with
company
you.
says, "Hey, what's your podcast reach?" then that's all that matters. Everything else is just you are allowing yourself a way out when you should be spending more time on that damn thing and just making it 10 times better.
I agree. I actually completely agree. I will say that I can start bringing people in to handle some of that other stuff. So
Exactly.
the social media stuff, right? So that it doesn't take, we have a team meeting, or maybe I check in with them for 20 minutes every week and make sure that, any questions or concerns or anything get handled. But yeah, then my primary focus should be on finding more sponsors, starting more shows, growing the shows. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if you're bringing in enough money to be able to hire that person to do that other thing, then do that thing. If not, then focus on the primary thing.
Yep.
So there are two ways, right? Either you do the primary thing until you make enough money to hire that other person. And once you hire the other person to do other things, you go back to doing your primary thing.
Right.
So there is no excuse to not focus on the primary damn thing.
I agree.
Which is the one that makes 10x the money, 20x the money. It's what Josh calls the 120-20, or is it? What is it, Josh? 120?
Yeah, the 120-20 rule.
The 120-20 rule.
Yeah.
It's like there are things that are giving you 120%, but the remaining shit is just taken away. What was it again, Josh? Can you explain it?
Yeah, it's the top. It's something like the top 20% actually brings in. The top 60 to 80% brings in 120% of your results, and then the bottom 20% actually subtracts 20%. So you end up at 100.
So maybe there's a case. Okay. So the top 80% is doing 120%, or is it the top 20% that's doing 120%? Because
no, it's
more
like
what
yeah, it's like the something like the top 20% is like doing. Okay, so the top 20% is generating. Basically generates all the profit. The middle 60% generates basically breaks even, and then the bottom 20% actually loses money, so it brings you back down. So like in a in like a retail type scenario, those would be like the things that you've got all the recall, like people are always returning or having customer support issues. It's kind of easy to envision in that type of scenario. So you've got, you get 20% of your products get all the returns, gets all the customer support. So you have this huge customer support team just to support these 20 products that are actually, and they're actually the dragging you down. So just cutting them like whoop, bumps the whole thing up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think it's it's not just in retail. I can visualize it in our businesses too.
Yeah, it's a little harder to see the direct.
Like
it's harder to see how something like in our world, if you get $100 a month from Amazon affiliate, like it seems like free money, but it's in reality you're having to invest time and effort into. We discount our time and effort and don't factor that into the equation. But if it takes you 5 hours a month to generate that $100, well, then you're effectively making $20 an hour versus doing something else where you could be making $300 or $500 an hour.
Well, you're not making $20 an hour. That's exactly what you're saying. You're losing $100.
Well, yeah, exactly.
An hour.
Yeah, you're losing the
Or
difference between
$180 an hour.
Yeah, you're losing the difference between what you could be making and what
Yeah.
you're.
Yeah, and that's
But
how we have to
yeah.
look at our time now. We
Yeah.
cannot be looking at time as, did I make $20 or $30 an hour? We have to be looking at, am I going to break even on this, or am I going to lose a bunch of shirt on
Right.
this effort?
But
Mhm.
the marginal cost then of, let's say for the podcast, for example, putting an affiliate link in versus putting a regular link in, that may be worth it. But if I'm going out
Yeah.
and creating a ton of content in order to sell an affiliate product that isn't a good fit or, whatever, right? So if I go spend 50 hours, then
Yeah.
I've got to make sure that I am making 50 hours worth back on the affiliate deal.
Okay,
Right.
so I want to take the example of the deal we did. It wasn't any different from the normal content you created for your blogs. You still had sponsorships. You did everything that was normal. It just added to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, just the podcast by itself would have been very profitable had we done it properly
Yeah.
without even the email blasts and stuff like that. The email was useful, but the podcast by itself would have been really profitable. If only we knew how useful it was. So yeah, like staying in that lane and just pushing that boundary
Yep.
of that lane only. I think that's like trying to cut out things rather than add things is the challenge that all three of us have right now, or all four of us have right now in our businesses. Trying to cut out a lot of shit to grow faster. It's almost like the only way to grow faster.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep.
It's like the pumpkin patch or whatever you want to call it. What are you guys doing, Josh? You guys have a timeline for the new thing that you were working on?
Not yet. I haven't heard from John really since we talked about it the other week. So yeah, I'm not sure what his thoughts are there.
I think he's dedicated to that. It's just a matter of time before you guys do it, right?
It sounds that way, yeah.
Yeah.
How
How was your last promotion?
We did, yeah, that was pretty interesting. So we did, it was an interesting test of the effectiveness of webinars. So we did, when I first did this, so this was the Clever Programmer with Kazi from cleverprogrammer.com. And we basically reran, so I had asked him last year, about 14 months ago, to do a promotion with us. And so I set it up. It was 3 days. I did 8 emails in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a simple $100 discount and pretty straightforward. And so this time we used the exact same campaign, but he made the whole thing way more complicated. So he added 2 webinars. So we promoted a free webinar that he was doing. We sent like 3 or 4 emails for this webinar, and we got like 1,700 opt-ins.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was going to be the kind of the first batch to go through the launch. So the idea was the webinar would warm them up, obviously, and then they'd go into the launch sequence early. And then we sent emails. So once the launch window opened, so those people were getting emails from Kazi during the launch. And then once the launch window opened, we just started emailing our list again. And I just emailed the whole list. I didn't segment out the people that opted in for the webinar. Mm-hmm. And so John was thinking that we were going to get like a 5 or 10% conversion rate on the people webinar. On the webinar, right? Which I think we might have talked about that last time.
No. On the show ups or on the registrations?
On the registrations.
Ooh.
So, so what we ended up getting last I heard from them, we got 6 total out of 1,700 that converted. through the webinar. So we actually ended up doing really well with the revenue because John negotiated 100% commission deal on this, which is great. You know, like if they will give you all the money then, you know, take that every time. So we ended up, but the webinar, the webinar basically completely bombed. It was, what's six out of 1,700?
0.3.
Yeah, it was 0.3% conversion on the webinar. And that's conversion on that entire cohort. As far as I can tell, that's not just on the one webinar. It's like, of the people that went through that's how many sales there were. So that really basically all the sales came, like we've not had any success letting someone else handle the selling. Like basically,
you did it with Dan Locke. That worked, right?
Not really. Cause we generated we ended up making 17 or 18 sales on that out of, you know, it depends on your definition of work. I mean, it was such a high price point that we ended up making some money out of it. But the number of just the pure number of sales was really low, really, really low.
So you made $17,000 on like 15 emails and 5 videos and something like that.
Yeah, and John traveled up to Canada, and like it was.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that didn't. Yeah, like the whole like
other deal. That wasn't the deal with Kazi.
Yeah, that was the other deal. For this one, we ended up. So we did exactly. It was so funny because I reconfigured we added some emails on the front end to promote the free webinar to get people into that funnel. But then I took the emails that I wrote last time, the 8 emails, and I just reconfigured them. Oh, the other thing he did was he added an early bird pricing. We've talked about this before. So the first 4 days was early bird pricing. Second 4 days was like, buy it at the full price and it's going to close, right? So you've got two different deadlines. And he also added there was an extra live webinar in there somewhere in the mix, just to make things even more complicated.
What's the price point now?
It was the early bird was $397 and the full price was $497. Okay. So basically the idea with the early bird pricing is that you get 2 deadlines, right? So you get twice the scarcity. So people think you're going to get more sales. Well, what actually happened was that we got, if you look at the way that the percentages broke out, we got half the sales that we would have normally gotten on the last day when the early bird expired. And then we got half again on the last day. Oh. So if you added the percentages up, it exactly matched what you typically see on the last day. They added up to 60%. Yeah, it was just spread out. So we had 85 sales the first time, 85 sales the second time. And so it was actually really interesting to watch it. But basically the revenue was the same to within $75. So wow. Added all this complexity. Now I do think that adding in some of the stuff like the webinars might have offset, because we've run this before. So we usually see some fatigue where it's like we get a lower take the second time around than we did the first time.
What was your gross on this one?
It was like it was just over 29,000. So, but we got 100% commission. So we got
29,000, you said?
Yeah.
So you made like 60 sales?
We made 85 sales.
85 sales, but you said on the webinar you only made 6 sales?
Yes, on the webinar we only made 6 sales. So basically virtually all the sales came from the emails that I wrote last time.
On the webinar you didn't get sales, but how many people who watched the webinar bought?
I don't know that. That's all. Their numbers are all kind of obscured. I've gotten a little bit of, I can see Samcart data, and they told me that 6 people that they had tagged as opting in. So they were tagging everyone who opted in. 6 of those people bought. I have no idea what the show up rate was or anything.
So this was a good promotion for you guys, like 29K
it was.
For
8
emails, you said?
Yeah. Well, it was 8. It ended up being 12 emails, I think. So,
okay.
But yeah, it was good. I do think that some of the extra stuff he added in helped a little bit because it offset the it offset the usual fatigue.
When was the last time you ran that?
It was 14 months ago, so it was definitely a big gap.
That was a long time
So
ago.
it was probably maybe 25,000. I'm guessing like of the 82,000 people, maybe 25,000 of them saw it last time around, and it was over a year ago. So,
And I don't necessarily believe that people seeing the offer multiple times is a bad thing. It's in some ways a good thing, because the more they see the offer, the higher the conversion percentage.
well, we typically see the opposite, that the more they see it, like and you see this with direct mail too. So whenever they used to mail out a promotion, they'd mail it out once, and then like if you mailed it again a month later, you'd get half. There was like a very specific formula. It was like every time you did it, you'd get about half the response of the previous time. And I typically see like we'll do it once, and if we'll make like, let's just say 30,000. The second time, if it's depending on how long it is, it might be 20,000, and then if we do it again, it might be 15.
So for your own products, how do you guys see this play out usually?
I don't know that I've ever looked at it quite the same way, because everyone's coming in. I don't know. I've not really ever thought about that. But so we typically would make an offer when they come in. Trying to think. Yeah, that's hard. That's a really hard question to answer, because you've got the cohort coming in month to month. So like you've got a month of people coming in, like 4,000 people sign up, X number buy.
How often do you guys repeat an offer?
Like an affiliate offer?
Your own offer?
Our offer? It used to be every quarter or so.
But in the offer, is it just like, hey, flash sale for this product, or is it a full-blown email campaign again?
It's usually like a 2-day flash sale with like three to 5 emails. So
and these are evergreens?
No, we turned off. The evergreen stuff doesn't work very well. So I turned that off. So what I found was that we would run a sale. We'd run one of these flash sales, and then we'd get, X% converting, and then I'd make it evergreen and trigger it off of a number of days after they signed up, and it never did as well as it did when it was like live. And I can't explain it. I can't explain it, but I've heard this. I've talked about this on my email list before, and I've had other people reply to me and go, I've seen the same thing. So I don't know if there's some sort of like.
So you're doing live promos after the first promo on the evergreen email list?
Yeah, I mean the last one we did for our products was Cyber Monday.
Oh, that was the crazy one where you sold everything for $99.
Exactly, right. So we haven't done a discount offer for a Simple Programmer product in a while. We've been doing the affiliate offers.
Because what the digital marketer guys were saying is that if you have multiple email campaigns to sell the same product, you should be selling the same product every quarter to your list, and offering a discounted offer to that list every quarter with a new angle, a new kind of discount, or a new way to sell it, or new email campaign, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Every quarter you will see people,
that's kind of the approach that they talk about in the machine.
Yeah.
I'm
basically
program.
Building more of that into the system right now, like being able to sell more frequently using these different email courses, different angles of email courses.
Mm-hmm.
And offering a sale every time there's an email course. So that way.
Yeah, it's a good idea. The challenge is when all the same people sign up for all the email courses, which is what tends to happen for us, where it's like we'll get a 10% opt-in on the if it's the same 10% of people going through, or 8% of the same and 2% are different, then you're not going to sell them the same thing again, like they've already bought it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, but you're getting new audience every freaking time. You guys are getting what, 4,000 email subs a month right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, your traffic is as big as Pat Flynn. I was just looking at it.
Is it
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
How much traffic does Pat Flynn get?
I think you have more than Pat Flynn. 500,000 a
Wow.
month.
No, we get 2,000 or 200,000.
Views or visitors?
It's probably, I haven't looked at it in a while. It's actually probably 250,000 views and like 150,000 users or something like that.
Okay.
So I think he's a little bigger, but
No, I mean, if you look on SimilarWeb, you guys are bigger.
Where do you get that? SimilarWeb? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
yeah. So, but anyway, I'm looking at the audience here. See what we're getting. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting comparison of just like, I don't think that adding a lot of complexity, like I don't really think that adding a lot of adding pre-sale, quote unquote, pre-sale content doesn't really do much. It's what matters is what you do in the 6 months to a year leading up to something like this. That can actually make a difference. I've not seen a lot of good support for the idea that you can like pre-frame in like a week's worth of content leading up to something, that it makes any difference at all.
Well, that's that fast is slow and slow is fast again, right? You
exactly.
put
Right.
the work in.
Yep.
The results.
Right. And it's like the long-term focus is really important.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can just strap a rocket pack on and get some momentum, but it's not going to last.
Right. Okay. Yeah. We're at 25.
So if you look at this, look at the trends. They're so freaking identical. It's kind of eerie.
Nice.
You see that?
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. So which one's Simple Programmer? The blue. Well, they're way off. Our actuals right now, 30 days, 254,000 page views. Users.
Yeah, I think they're almost half off. But the thing is, you still get to see, you can still compare.
Still relative.
Yeah, well, it could be. Or they could be half off in the other direction for Pat Flynn. And
No. That's always the case. Like everyone I ask, I think Satya,
oh, really?
Learn OpenCV. Let me try that, because that's another one. He just overtook Pat a while ago.
Okay. So you see a consistent pattern then, as far as
he was also saying, oh, these numbers are way bigger than what I have.
Yeah.
It was always the same. Basically, everyone's saying the same thing in terms of like, the numbers are bigger than what I thought.
Yeah.
So there's the same as you guys. Ooh, he's gone crazy now. 1 million.
Wow.
Yeah. He has an AI course. You guys should, talking about not getting distracted, you guys should think about it.
That is not at all a distraction.
I'm working on, can you give me an introduction?
No, I'm sure Satya would love to work with you guys. They all. Oh, you want to talk to him?
Together an AI podcast, and I've got a few things. I've got a few feelers out, but I don't have anything concrete as far as.
Oh yeah, talk to him for sure. I'll shoot me an email. I'll introduce you and John already knows Satya. So if you guys want to do any work with Satya, hey, I'm sure he'll be happy to.
Yeah, I've got just as a side note, I've got the AWS AI evangelist guy. He basically wants to send me like all of their success stories with all of their clients, and so he wants to introduce me to a whole bunch of people that would make good guests. Here's what we built, and here's how we did it. So if I can get some hosts together and we can talk about building out AI systems, that would be cool.
Yeah, talk to Satya for sure.
I need to jet here.
Yeah, me too.
I have one more distraction I want to bring up too, and then
Make it quick.
I will make it quick. So one of the hosts on the Freelancer show has business hitsubscribe.com,
Okay.
and they write blog posts, technical blog posts for companies.
Okay.
And I just reached out to him and I was like, hey, would any of your customers like podcasts? And it turned out that I hit him at just the right time because he was looking at putting together some partnership with somebody who could do that. So I may wind up pulling together a whole bunch of business out of that too.
In terms of creating new podcasts.
Creating new podcasts that are hosted on companies' websites. So they would have their own podcast, but it would essentially be produced by us.
And what would you get out of it?
Money.
Or no. In what format? Is it just like?
I don't understand the question.
So they're just gonna pay you as much as a sponsorship fee?
Yeah, basically they would just pay us to, if I find hosts for them, I will probably wind up paying the hosts something, and then they'll have to pay for the production, and then
Okay, so I think the we're going back to the same question. Stick to one business model. I think that is the key here. The business model is selling sponsorships, acquiring audience and selling sponsorships. This is very different from the business. You can still go to do this a year later when you have cleaned out the current system, because every opportunity is a distraction to your bigger.
Okay, stop talking. You're right.
I'm just saying, like, if you
it's true.
Spend the time on building your own podcast network and getting your own sponsorships, that would be way more lucrative than.
Yeah, I think the key here is the word profitable. So you could. Jonathan Stark is he's on the Freelancer show, I think, right? Or something. He's one of the guests on one of the panelists on there. He talks a lot about this, and one of the things he makes a distinction is like implementation work. So like if you're a coder, implementation work often is the biggest check. Like if you look at it, it might be like out of $100,000 project, you might be able to get $80,000 to do the implementation and the coding, but it's way less profitable because it's just like a huge versus like the upfront design, right?
Right. The architecture work.
Yeah, that might be like $1,000 an hour work, and then the implementation might be $100 an hour work.
That's fair.
And I think this is kind of where you're veering into with this is like, even though that's a big that $80,000 check is big, it's way less profitable, right? So in your case, the sponsorships are super profitable. Like once you get a sponsor lined up, it's like it's a huge amount of money and it's very profitable. Versus producing podcasts for people, if you compared the effective hourly on those two, like it's probably $50 an hour that you're earning. And then you're generating a lot of overhead with, the team and everything.
Yeah, but a lot of that, once it goes to the team, is pretty automatic.
But remember, every time you start to create a new system, you're revving up your personal engines to do that. Like,
right.
Oh, I will have to put this in place, and I'll have to put that in place, and I have to put this in place. I have to put this balance in this process.
Right. And your team... you don't want, like, you're going to tap out your team at some point, and they need to produce the podcasts that are related to the sponsorship, which is where the profit is, right?
That's true too.
The difference between
between
the good and the great is that the great say no to a lot more things. That's what Warren Buffett. Okay, I'm going to close with my thought here. My thought today is the difference between the successful people and really successful people is that the really successful people say no to almost everything. This is not my quote. This is Warren Buffett, but this has been on my mind more than anything else lately. So I'm looking to cut down rather than add.
Right.
I mean, rather than add every time, I have the question on my mind is what more can I remove from my things to do?
That makes sense.
That's my thoughts.
I'm gonna mine's kind of related to that, which is the lesson coming out of this, which is that simple is going to get you 80% or 90% of the results, and then adding the huge amount of complexity on top of it it may get you an additional 10%, but you've added you've added a huge amount of overhead. And for email promotions, it really is like a 3, 4, 5 day launch, 5 to 10 emails, deadline, some kind of special offer, done. All the fancy stuff, multiple deadlines, it's all marginal. It may or may not help, but it's like tiny percentages on the end. So.
Yeah.
Yep. So along those same lines, it's not just the simplicity of the business model, and it's not just the simplicity of, the marketing and things like that, like Josh is talking about, but just the simplicity of the message and getting down to that core idea. It's really something that I've really been thinking deeply about, because if you can give people, the idea, I'm going to give you $1 million is a very simple idea.
Yep.
And people will come running, right? If you're out there saying, I'm going to give you $1 million. So if you can find something similar and simple that you can tell people you're going to offer them, then you can turn around and you can make the other things work for you around those ideas. And that's what gets people to come running to you. And that's what gets them willing to hand money over, is because you're essentially going to give them something back of better value.
Yeah. I'm going to add to that now. I feel like there was something missing in the whole thing that I said. It's not possible as a human being or would you trust a person who ascribes to or subscribes to all the possible values that are out there? His fundamental values, there are 30 fundamental values that he lives by. Or would you trust the person who lives by 3 fundamental values?
Mm-hmm. 3, definitely.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of simplicity, or even more like one who lives by 1 principal value. Everything else just falls in place because of that value.
Yeah.
Right? Someone who ascribes to all values doesn't ascribe to any value.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who does everything doesn't do anything. And the fewer things that we do, the fewer things that our story is about, the fewer things that our message is about, the fewer things that the overall brand, the business is about, the better we can be at the damn thing.
Yep.
And the more trustworthy we become in the marketplace.
Sounds good.
You're here.
I like it.
All right. See you guys next week.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.